Hi, welcome. In this video, we're here once again with Kobe. Kobe's here for a 2-week board and train. We're in week 1. And on this video, I'm going to be adding to what I call the script in terms of the basic method. I'm going to be adding to it by way of the down. Now again, when I start to add to the script, start to incorporate the down into this, it's really important to make sure that you're in a place in terms of process where a dog is going to be more agreeable to this level of influence happening during the method. Now in terms of Kobe is doing really well. On the last video you would have seen the basic method with the 1 step, doing the sit, the push-pull, the moving forward. Here it's going to be very similar in terms of the method, except for again I'm going to be adding the down as I'm moving. Now the down works off of the push-pull. So after the push-pull happens, my hand will already be placed where it needs to be to continue to assert influence to get Kobe to come into agreement with the down. Now here when you're doing the down, the goal isn't to just continue to push forward to make it happen. In terms of starting to get a dog to come into agreement with the script and with influence, you want to kind of recognize that there is a kind of working through, and how the principle here by way of agreeableness is very similar to if you ever seen a tug-of-war team engaging back and forth and you see one side start to kind of crumble, start to buckle. Well, this is kind of how the principle works here by way of how, through the interactions with how influence the role plays by way of agreeableness. As the dog starts to come into agreement, they start to come to a level of acceptance. You see that manifest through going into the position itself. And so it's all about understanding the role of influence, the role of the owner. And so again, when you start to do the down with the dog, they're ready for that. So here I'm going to be moving forward, doing the 1 step with Kobe. And as I do it again, I'm going to be just starting to use my kind of body itself by way of just method. So I'm not trying to bring undue influence over Kobe. I'm just going to be moving forward and start to do this. So I'm going to start to move forward here with him. As I do, I'm going to capture again, bum, and do the push-pull. So typically the down happens after about every 3 sits. So generally after about the 3rd sit, I'm going to add on. Now I'm about to add on here. So again, bum first, push-pull, you want to complete that. That helps to drop a couple dominoes in his mind. And I'm leaning and just continuing to just be steady with how I'm asserting influence. I'm not using commands. He knows the intent, okay, by way of how I'm pushing. If I use a command, then I've already signed off on a certain expectation, agreement. I want to change the agreement, okay? So here, I'm going to keep asserting here for a moment. It's a good example of a little bit of stubbornness here. So there's the collapse, goes down into it, little push-pull. So when he's down there too, I want to continue to keep him under a level of influence. I don't want him sniffing. I don't want his nose going out that way. I want to keep a little bit of, tightness here with the leash. And so when I bring him back up into a sit, again, not saying sit, you can, so long as when you say it, you're still asserting influence. So he needs to feel you in terms of being in control, asserting influence throughout this process. So right here, I'm going to start to apply a little bit of pressure. He knows what I want from how I'm pulling. His legs move. Capture again, his bum, do another push-pull, and then move forward. So I'm going to move forward again. Here's the thing too, when you move forward here, like when you're doing the 1 step, this turns it into more of a power play because you're slowing it down, you're being more intentional. This brings it into more of a power play type of situation, which is what you want as part of it. Push, pull. Okay, I'm going to move forward. I'm going to take more than 1 step here because I want to come around so you can kind of see this on camera. I'm going to do the down again. Again, change hands, so whatever side he's on, I want this hand free and clear. Really good push-pull first. Again, that helps drop a couple dominoes. Comes into agreement. He's down there, a little push-pull. And this is, again, where I want relaxation. So even when he's down there, keep a little bit, again, of control over your dog, some influence here. And so if you want a dog really to relax and almost like go to sleep, okay, you want to do that through how you're interacting with your dog in terms of just nudging a little bit, getting him to kind of just de-stress. So this takes stress off the dog when you do it this way in terms of just slowly getting their chin to kind of go to the floor. I'm not going to be doing this here with Kobe, or trying to, but here he's pretty relaxed, a little stubborn going down, but that's the whole principle. It's just about how you're getting a dog to come into agreement. So again, it's going to have him sit again. So again, a little bit of, influence here. I want his legs to move. So again, I'm talking about the language of the method. It is about how you're, moving the leash, how you're communicating through the leash with him understanding what I want him to do. So when his perceptions change, you'll see this after about 12 days of the process. Then once, again, the focus has been generated, then I'll start to, use verbal commands. Okay, if I use verbal commands too soon, that's not good, because they say, oh, sure, I'll do a sit based on a prior kind of signed agreement. Oh, I'll get a treat, or I'll get some petting. See, it's just like the parent-child relationship, how that kind of gets signed off on after a certain expectation's been set up. Here, we want to re-sign the contract, and so what I'm doing is I'm bringing him under a level of control and kind of stripping it down to a level of these interactions which realigns his perceptions, okay? There's a lot of kind of critical thinking that went into the system, but people, want to use commands, it's the language of the method, okay? He understands the intent by way of the fact that these interactions are the same all the time. So he said, okay, this makes sense. Dale's moving the same way, he's pushing, the same way. I know he wants me to do it down. So, but then because influence is part of the equation now, it's very, very much changes how he thinks. And you'll see that little downwardness too. Understand that when you're doing this, the dog will look kind of a little depressed. Okay, if you're watching the video, say, because that's the transition part. Okay, so before they gain comfort through control, they'll look, happy. Then when you move them into a follower role, depending on how much control they have, they'll look a little depressive. But then as they become, more and more of a follower in agreement, they start to look relaxed again. So there's a transition. It's like, the boss of a big company going down the file clerk. Not happy about it at first, but once they're down there, they're going to kind of like punching in 9 to 5. They say, well, this is great. I don't have to deal with all the other problems of personnel. I can just come in and do my job. And so here, this takes stress off him, but he's going to look, and again, this is all dependent on how much control a dog has as to how depressed they're going to look. There's that downwardness, okay? They're having a reaction to the transition to the process itself. But always coming out on the other side of it in terms of, a healthy relationship. So you have to be able to reconcile the responses of dogs properly by way of a process. The same thing, I move forward here with them. Capture. Little push, pull, forward. Again,